I never thought my quiet little suburban home would become the center of one of the most ridiculous yet satisfying neighbor feuds of my life. When I first moved in, I dreamed of peace. A modest backyard, some space to grow vegetables, maybe a couple of chickens clucking around for fresh eggs. Nothing extravagant, nothing disruptive. Just simple living. For months, it was exactly that. I'd wake up to the soft sound of my hens scratching in the dirt, sip my coffee on the porch, and feel a sense of calm that most people pay good money to find. But all of that serenity came crashing down the moment I crossed paths with her, the one person every neighborhood seems cursed with, a full-blown HOA Karen. She was the type you could spot from a mile away. Oversized sunglasses, a permanent scowl etched into her face, and a self-appointed air of authority as though the cul-de-sac was her personal kingdom. At first, I thought she was just one of those overly involved neighbors, someone who liked to gossip and remind people to mow their lawns. Annoying, sure, but harmless. Boy, was I wrong. The first encounter happened on a Saturday morning. I was out back scattering feed for the chickens when I heard the sound of someone clearing their throat, loud, sharp, like they wanted to stab me with it. I turned, and there she was, standing at the edge of her perfectly manicured lawn, arms folded tight across her chest. "Do you really think this is appropriate?" she barked, nodding her head toward my hens. I blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "The chickens," she spat like the word itself was filthy. "This isn't a farm. This is a residential neighborhood. People don't want to listen to barn animals." I tried to keep my tone polite. They're actually very quiet. They don't bother anyone, and I checked the HOA guidelines before getting them. It's perfectly allowed. Her lips curled into a smirk that made my skin crawl. "We'll see about that," she said before storming off. At first, I brushed it off. Some people just don't like animals, right? No big deal. But then, 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the HOA. It claimed I was violating noise ordinances and needed to remove the chickens immediately. My stomach twisted in frustration. Noise ordinances? My hens barely made a peep compared to the neighbor Yappy Terrier that barked half the night. It didn't take a genius to figure out who was behind the complaint. I called the HOA to argue my case, but all I got was the typical bureaucratic runaround. A neighbor has expressed concerns. We take all complaints seriously. It's in everyone's best interest to maintain harmony. Harmony? I nearly laughed out loud. There was nothing harmonious about Karen and her vendetta. For weeks, the passive-aggressive war continued. Every time I stepped outside, she was there. Arms crossed, eyes narrowed, watching like a hawk waiting to swoop in. She'd make snide comments if we crossed paths on the street. Hope those things done to bring rats. Better watch for diseases. Once, she even muttered, "Filthy farm animal lover," under her breath as she passed me. Each word dug under my skin. I could feel the heat in my chest, the way my hands curled into fists when I tried to smile and let it go. But inside, the resentment was boiling. Then came the second notice from the HOA. This one was harsher. Remove the chickens or face fines. That's when I snapped. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't breaking any rules. She just didn't like that I had dared to live my life without asking for her royal permission. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized Karen thrived on control. She wanted the neighborhood to bend to her will. But me? I wasn't about to bow. That's when the idea took root. Revenge. Sweet, feathery, early morning revenge. See, one thing about chickens is that they're natural alarm clocks. Every morning, as the sun peeks over the horizon, they wake up, stretching their wings, clucking softly before gearing up for the day. And while most people would never notice it unless they were standing right next to the coop, I realized I had a golden opportunity. What if I gave Karen exactly what she claimed to hate? The plan unfolded slowly, carefully. I moved the chicken coop closer and closer to her side of the yard each week. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough that Karen definitely would. The first morning I set the coop near her fence, I woke up at 5 a.m., brewed a hot cup of coffee, and sat on my porch. I didn't even have to wait long. As soon as the sun touched the horizon, the hens began their morning chatter. At first, it was soft. Cluck, cluck, cluck. But then it grew louder as they all joined in. I watched Karen's bedroom window like a hawk. Sure enough, within minutes, the blinds snapped open and there she was. Hair sticking up in every direction, eyes puffy with rage, glaring into my yard like she wanted to set it on fire. I almost spit out my coffee from laughing. The next day, I did it again. And the next. By day 4, she was visibly unraveling. I caught her stomping out onto her patio in slippers, screaming, "Shut them up!" at the top of her lungs. But here's the best part. I wasn't breaking a single rule. The chickens were allowed. Their noise? Minimal, according to HOA guidelines. I was covered, and she knew it. Weeks passed, and her torment only grew. Neighbors started noticing her disheveled appearances in the mornings, her loud complaints about those damn chickens whenever anyone would listen. Some even chuckled behind her back because, honestly, who loses their mind over a couple of hens? Meanwhile, I leaned into the role of the calm, innocent neighbor. When she accused me at an HOA meeting of deliberately weaponizing chickens, I widened my eyes and said, "I'm just following the rules. If the noise bothers you, maybe invest in some earplugs?" The room erupted in muffled laughter. The humiliation was eating her alive. And the more she fought, the deeper she sank. She sent me furious texts, left nasty notes on my doorstep, even tried to claim my chickens were aggressive. Aggressive, as if a 3-pound hen was plotting a neighborhood coup. Each claim she made was more desperate than the last, and each time the HOA sided with me because, again, I wasn't breaking a single rule. Her rage became my entertainment. Every morning, I'd sip my coffee and watch her misery unfold like my own personal reality show. And with each sunrise, I felt that knot of anger inside me loosen just a little bit more. She had tried to make me feel powerless, to strip away the simple joy I had in my own home. But in the end, I had turned the tables. I held the power now. The climax came one morning when she finally snapped. The chickens started clucking, the sun barely peeking over the rooftops, and Karen stormed out in her bathrobe, screaming loud enough to wake the whole block. "I can't take this anymore," she screeched. "You and your stupid chickens are ruining my life." I walked over to the fence, calm as ever, and said, "Funny, that's exactly how I felt when you tried to take them away." Her jaw dropped, face twisted with fury, but she had no comeback. The neighbors, peeking through their curtains, had seen it all. And from that day forward, she stopped complaining. She avoided me, avoided the chickens, and most importantly, stayed out of my business. In the end, it wasn't just about the chickens. It was about standing up to a bully who thought she could control everything around her. It was about proving that sometimes the sweetest revenge doesn't come from shouting or fighting. It comes from letting karma, or in my case, a few clucking hens, do the talking. And every time I crack open a fresh egg from my backyard, I smile, knowing Karen probably still hears the faint echo of her feathery alarm clock in her nightmares. Sweet, sweet justice.